We don't see a lot of stealth action games released over the course of any given year, so it's always a nice, rare treat to see one that not only exists, but also manages to make something of an active effort to make itself appealing to both experienced players and casual newcomers alike. Aragami 2 follows in the shadowy footsteps of its 2016 predecessor, maintaining the same vividly cartoony, borderline, cel-shaded art style, all the while refining and expanding upon the original game's core mechanics, while adding whole new elements not previously present. Most notably, the game is now designed to fully support cooperative multiplayer, through both an online server browser and by directly dropping in via friend-only invite. Whenever you take a historically single-player game franchise in a co-op multiplayer direction, there's usually sure to be a certain amount of hesitation, oftentimes a degree of open hostility, from your existing single-player player base. It's a lot easier to design a co-op game from scratch than it is to conform an existing single-player game franchise, especially one in a genre that isn't natively designed with co-op multiplayer firmly in mind, as is the case with stealth action games, to this different approach. For the purposes of this review, I played in both single-player mode and an online co-op as well. Since the game's community is only moderately active at this point, it was a bit tricky at times for me to find other people to play with, but I was able to enjoy a few hours of multiplayer companionship over the course of a week of on and off play. Since I don't want to get into any spoiler-heavy story specifics, not that the game has an incredibly dense story, but still, I'll just give a basic summary. You play as a reincarnated ninja with supernatural powers, granted heightened agility and dexterity as well as shadow powers, allowing you to traverse around the map with relative ease, assuming of course that you avoid any areas of the map covered in light, which effectively negate your abilities. Aragami 2 is one of those stealth action games like IO Interactive's rebooted Hitman trilogy that heavily rewards you for adhering to stealth, but conversely doesn't really punish you for adapting a more aggressive playstyle if that's the direction you choose to go. Which is good because I ended up choosing oftentimes to be one hell of an over-aggressive ninja. It didn't even matter if the person was in my way or not. Even if there were a few buildings over and presented no real obstacle between me and my objective, I'd still be strongly tempted to sneak up behind them and put a sword in their back. When I'd be playing multiplayer, oftentimes my allies would leave their opponents knocked out alive. I would go around and one by one eliminate them. I don't like leaving potential witnesses alive, even if in all likelihood no other enemy is going to find them and wake them up again. At the end of the mission, the game gives you a total player score reflective of your skill and the time it took you to complete the mission. I generally landed somewhere in S or A tiers. I think the lowest I ever got was a B tier score, and that was mostly because I got lost at one point, since some of the maps can be rather big and tend to reuse certain assets quite commonly in order to create a very singular art design and a dense map layout, which can be confusing if you're not thinking clearly at the time. The art style, which was decent in the first game, received some major improvements here in the sequel, as did the performance. I'm sure that having a slightly bigger production budget, given the first game's relative success, certainly helped. Although it must be said that the cost for that was admittedly passed on to the consumer, as the original game was priced at $19.99 USD, whereas its sequel nearly doubles that asking price, landing at a total of $34.99 USD. Luckily, the developers made sure that the amount of content and the presentation quality of that content was significantly scaled up compared with what they did in the first game, so honestly I don't see this as being much of an issue. That said, I've been playing this on Xbox Game Pass, so that's kind of a moot point for me. While the original game had a few in-game rendered cutscenes here and there, they were relatively rough and elementary, similar to what one might expect from N64-era games. You might see the character walk for a few seconds and turn their head, but not much else. Also, though, it's been a while since I played the first game, so I can't say for certain, but I recall it feeling like it was locked at 30 FPS during those sequences. Whereas here you have far crisper animations that all play out at 60 FPS, and the cutscenes themselves focus far more on actually showing you the story material play out in real time, rather than having an NPC companion just narrate things to you in your ear about stuff that happened in the past. The maps are also far larger and far more detailed. While it's still clear that the developers prefer to reuse a lot of assets, as many of the buildings will often appear identical, especially when judging by their exterior rather than their interior, I'm more than willing to forgive that, as the focus for these, now 2 games, have never been on the world itself, but rather the stealth action gameplay you now go about doing within it. In the original game, the maps were basically exclusively populated by enemies, and your movement around the map was insanely limited. You basically were restricted to just crouch walking around the map or teleporting short distances from one specific shadowed location to another. Here there is way more in the vein of navigation and traversal options. You can sprint, climb over walls, navigate your way from rooftop to rooftop, etc. There's frankly a ton of verticality. If you're playing a level here and can't find a single way to get to your objective without getting spotted, you are just playing dreadfully because there is no shortage of ways to get where you want to go and do what you need to do. And seemingly for the first time, at least as far as I can recall, there are actual non-hostile NPCs that often populate the map. These civilian NPCs are no direct danger to you. They won't attack you or anything, but if you kill one of them, it's basically an instant fail state, similar to what would happen in the Assassin's Creed games, if you go around killing civilians there. Here though, while the civilians won't attack you directly, that's not to say they aren't a danger to you at all. If they see you eliminating an enemy or find you near a dead body, they'll run off to find the nearest group of enemy NPCs and alert them to your activity. This will initiate a search that can go on for potentially several minutes at a time. As I mentioned earlier, I can and sometimes will try playing completely stealthily and go an entire match without being spotted. But I do enjoy just eliminating people, getting spotted, and quickly thinking on my feet in order to escape without being eliminated. As you successfully complete various story and side missions, you can level up and unlock skill points you can spend unlocking various skills which grant you new additional abilities. And you're free to practice these skills in a central open-world hub. Now you might wonder why you have both these individual hostile occupied levels and this open-world hub separate from one another. And the reason is quite simple. The latter is where you and your co-op buddies can hang out in between missions, and it's seemingly only in this hub that other players can drop in, assuming that you set your matchmaking preference to public rather than friends only. I don't have any friends who would play this game, so I could only rely on said matchmaking. Weirdly enough, Aragami 2 does not appear to have any text chat or voice chat support, nor does there appear to be a ping system, making it all but impossible for co-op players to communicate efficiently. Unless you're playing with a friend while using an external voice chat program like Discord, you're just going to have to sit tight and hope for the best. As far as content goes, you'll have your fair share to do. According to HowLongToBeat.com, a self-reporting statistics website I've long considered fairly reliable, average playthrough lengths appear to range from 13 to 14 hours in length, with completionists taking about 26 hours. And while I've been playing via Xbox Game Pass, so I really have no clue where to find the exact numbers, I'd say I've probably put in about 11 or 12 hours, and I've just started Chapter 7 of the 9 total chapters. In other words, I've completed over 40 of the story quests, and a good chunk of the side quests. I probably could have finished the game by now if I wanted to, but since I've been taking my time doing other stuff, because why not, I haven't gotten to that yet. Even once I put out this video, I'll probably go back and complete the remaining 2 chapters in my own spare time. It's rare to run across a sequel that not only manages to adequately carry over the core DNA of its predecessor with prettier graphics and an overall higher production quality, but also manages to rework the core gameplay formula and fix many of the core things that held back the original game from its full potential, while also adding a ton of replay value, which all in all does much to justify the increased price tag. If you're interested in stealth action games or just co-op games in general, I highly recommend giving Aragami 2 a try, especially if you have access to Xbox Game Pass and thereby can bypass the Steam retail price. I wouldn't hesitate in saying it's probably one of the best PC games to release in 2021. It's not perfect, far from, obviously, but I suspect even a few years from now, it's still going to hold up far better than most other similar games might, largely due to its almost Hitman-esque redoubled attention on open-ended, play-your-own-way type shenanigans. As ever, if you enjoyed this video, be sure to shadow your way over to the like button and throw a shuriken down in the comments below and let me know what you think of the game. Comments really help my videos get boosted in the algorithm, and plus I read and respond to nearly all the comments I get, so even if you just want to drop a comment to say hi or get my opinion on something, even if it's unrelated, I'll be more than happy to chat with you down there. Likewise, subscribing and clicking the bell really helps. I know it's cliche, but the YouTube algorithm is a pain in the ass to deal with, doubly so as a small channel. This is Warrior Dan signing out. Stay awesome everybody, stay safe, and peace out.